What is up, bros? Me, Josh here, and in today's video, I'm going to go over the good, the bad, and the ugly on what I saw in the 0.6.0 patch. The patch that just hit World of Warships on live on North America, and I believe now just on EU. So there's a lot of changes, mainly the captain skills. It was a complete rehaul of the captain skills. You guys didn't see it. This is what it looks like now. It's a complete change. You got a complete reset on all your captains. So if you are or haven't played the game in a little while, all your captains are going to have to get retrained, so be sure to do that, and be sure to kind of mess around. You can also check out shipcomrade.com, put a link down below for a good calculator. Now, you have a little while, I think for a couple more weeks or a week or so, for redistribute costs of really, really cheap, so be sure to put your points down, whatever build you want, or if you do kind of mess up with a point or want to redo, can we do it? It's 1 doubloon per point. So pretty cheap, nice little deal, and I think they're going to do that for a little while. So be sure to get in here and do that as fast as possible. Now, the star of the show that this patch has brought is Elite Commander XP. Now, in the past, a level 19 captain was almost unattainable. It was almost 10,000 experience to get to the 19th point, and basically you would max out about 18 points. Now, they have lowered by a large amount the number needed of XP to get a 19-point captain. So 19-point captains are very attainable now. I think I already have a few. Let's go over to my Montana captain. I think I already have a few battleships, like my Montana captain's level 19. So once you get to a 19-point captain, it then becomes an elite commander, and all the experience gained after that now becomes elite commander XP. So if I go to my Des Moines captain, who isn't 19 points, he's 18 points, I could then just buy the next point for whatever this, and then you have this own little separate thing. So that is awesome. I really like that. I think I had like 2.5 million elite commander XP. So I think now I have like 7 or 8 19-point captains. So that's pretty awesome. So that was probably, this is one of the coolest things. You know, you're saying, oh, well, I'm playing these ships. I like playing these ships. It's not wasted experience. You can now throw it into other stuff. So definitely really enjoy that. So some of the really good skills that I really enjoyed and I thought were actually pretty strong in their specific spots were, first of all, priority target. I think I really like this. This has kind of become for mainly like destroyers, cruisers, and CVs. This has become a really strong skill. I really enjoyed this skill, especially at one point. It lets you know how many ships are detecting you. It gives you a lot of information, especially if maybe if you're a destroyer that isn't quite as stealthy as other stuff. And let's say you have one, you're the only destroyer on your team, and the enemy team has like 2 destroyers or something like that, and you're kind of off to a side. Let's say all of a sudden you're spotted, and you're spotted by 2 ships. That could potentially mean they're both destroyers over there. So definitely awesome. Also knowing that if you're detected, it shows you normally detected, and if you're detected by 1 or more ships, it shows you a number of how many ships are detecting you. So if you're spotted and no ships are directed on you or focusing on you, you could maybe be a little bit more aggressive and get more guns out and more damage out. So this, I think, is a really underrated skill. It gives you a ton of information, and I'm really enjoying this. Also, another one, directional center for catapult aircraft. This basically gives you 2 planes. So if you're running fighter planes, it gives you 2 fighters, so it helps you with AA, as well as helping you scan for torpedoes. So I really like this. Priority target was more for the smaller agile ships, and this really helps for battleships, mainly to help with AA, 2 fighters to help take down some planes, or at least spread out the spreads. So like a dive bomber or a torpedo bomber, it makes it harder for them to get such a precise hit on you, and as well as just helping spot torpedoes and other stuff like that. So definitely nice, and really enjoyed those, especially at one point. So another one, adrenaline rush. I thought this was a really fun skill, and it really kind of makes the second level of skills harder to pick. Adrenaline rush, the more life you lose, basically the faster your shells and everything will go out, so your armaments will go out. Right now I think it's currently bugged, and it's not including secondaries, but it's supposed to, and they're going to change that in the near future. So adrenaline rush is really nice. I think a fun one, especially for battleships. Maybe if we talked about on my stream, maybe some cruisers with smoke, this would be a nice addition. You know, the more life you lose, you could potentially do this. You could potentially be really risky with like a Royal Navy cruiser, maybe take a big hit. You could sit in the smoke with a low life, pump out a bunch of damage, and then heal back up later when you have to move. So adrenaline rush, a fun skill. I like using it, and definitely going to be on like almost like my go-to tier 2 for battleships. Smoke screen expert. This was another one I really enjoyed, and mainly this one on Royal Navy cruisers. This is in my good section, my quote-unquote good section, almost specifically for Royal Navy cruisers. Now, how many times have you rolled out of smoke and then just gotten absolutely lit up, or even if you've gotten the the dreaded one puff smoke. This increases the 20% of the radius, so this was actually really, really nice for rolling Navy cruisers, the Belfast. I'm playing the Neptune a lot right now. Definitely helps, increases the size. There was one time I ran it on my Flint, and I was able to hide, I think, like 4 or 5 ships in my smoke, because not only does the smoke last a long time on the Flint, it was a massive plume of smoke. So this is really, really nice, especially at 2-point for Royal Navy cruisers. Now, for normal destroyers, I don't think it's quite needed, but on certain, mainly the Royal Navy cruisers, this was awesome. So at 2 points, I find that a great value, and really, really fun skill. So kind of jumping around with like the really good ones. Now, there's some that we'll get into here later, but Concealment Expert at 4 points. I found this fantastic. At a 10-point captain, you can get what you could get at a 15-point captain before the patch. So Concealment Expert at 4 points. I am loving this. I run this on almost every ship I have. And at 4 points, at a 10-point captain, that is such a good value, such a good skill. And I'm loving this, and especially because you can double it up on other stuff. This is a fantastic skill, especially at 4 points. So awesome there. It's basically the same thing for CV's Air Supremacy, getting that at 4 points now. Used to take 15 points, now you can get it at 10-point captain. This was amazing, so great change for that. Another thing I really, really enjoyed was Inertia Fuse for HE shells. I'm going to still call it Heap. Now, before it was only 25% to the armor penetration and negative 6% to fire. Now it's plus 30% to armor penetration and only 3%. So I found this with the change as a really, really good skill for certain ships. Now, if you are playing a ship that has a high volume of fire, like a high rate of fire, and smaller calibers around that 152 mark, or a little bit less, this is really, really good. I think for the higher calibers, a lot of people are saying run on the Dunkirk, run on the Zao. I don't think as much. The 203s are going to hit really, really hard anyway. And a lot of situations is the AP on those ships are so deadly anyway that you don't really want to kind of run the Heap skill right here. One thing I did notice is it makes me very lazy when I play this skill, but I found it really good because it makes me lazy in the fact that I only want to shoot HE and I don't really switch my ammo that much because the Sow is really big. I play this on my Kutuzov. I really, really liked on my Kutuzov, the Flint, the Atlanta. It's a really, really good for those certain destroyers. People are saying they like it on the Russian DDs. I don't know if I'd like running it on the Russian DDs so much because Russian DDs are Russian DDs and their AP is so disgustingly good anyway that if anything's giving you a decent broadside, you just want to stick to AP. So those are my really good skills that kind of pointed out. And yes, I know I'm forgetting a couple of people like, what about those? Well, let's get into the meh area of the skills. So the first quote-unquote meh skill I ran into was fire prevention. Now, this was something a lot of people were getting excited for, mainly for battleships, and this was increased from a 2-point to a 4-point. Increase the percent lowering on the fire chance from 7 to 10%. And one of the main thing on the skill is the number of fires sourced on the ship is reduced to 3. So basically what this does is it takes the superstructure, which on a normal battleship, there would be 3, and let's go to the Montana really quick. There'd be 3 areas, or 4 areas for fire. So there'd be the back, the front, and there'd be 2 superstructure areas. So what this has done is kind of warp the 2 superstructures areas into 1. Now, it seems good, and I'm sure it does. If you play hyper aggressive, this is definitely going to be a good one. I don't quite play hyper aggressive besides maybe like Gneisenau and Bismarck, but even then, I think I can count the times I've had 4 fires on my ship, maybe on one hand, out of all my games. One, people don't aim quite as much. They're just trying to pump out as much damage as possible. So this is going to help if you're hyper aggressive. The main thing that's killing me with this skill is that it requires 4 points to get. It's really, really hard to budget 4 points right now with how many good skills there are in the potential other builds, especially with Concealment being at 4, AFT being at 4. I put this as a very meh skill. If you maybe run a hyper aggressive build, I could see it, but it's really, really hard for me to spend 4 points or to budget 4 points away. You know, I would rather take basic survivability over the long run just to burn out. I just don't see myself getting 3+ fires on my battleship that much to warrant me taking the skill to only get a maximum of 3. So in that aspect, you know, if you want to play a little bit safer and get a little bit closer to stuff, that might help in the long run. I just don't see it. It's not a bad skill, it just doesn't really fit my play style. And I think a lot of these that are having like the meh and even the bad category is kind of play style. So fire prevention for me, kind of meh. I don't think I'd run it. On all my battleships, I'm not going to grab it, but it could be a good one for you, just not me. Second one, is radiolocation. Radiolocation gets a met grade for me. Now, I did not get in the situation which the thing will shine where there's 1 or 2 DDs left on the enemy team and you need to find those DDs to win. I did not get in one of those situations. That's when that skill is going to shine. But all the other games I played, this thing gave me little to no information that I didn't already have, meaning that I kind of knew where the DD was anyway. I could prepare for it, and it did give me some information with like smoke and if a destroyer had moved, or even I didn't feel like I was getting too punished with somebody else using it while I was being tracked on it. I was kind of actually surprised that I didn't see more people using this skill. I was expecting to be tracked. I played a lot of destroyers, a lot of pretty stealthy cruisers yesterday, and I didn't get tracked nearly at all. Maybe 20% of my games yesterday, I was getting tracked by radiolocation, and I don't know. Another thing is it's really hard for me to justify 4 points for this skill. Now there are certain builds on my Belfast I run it, and I did get some information from my Belfast because of course you can use it with like radar and sonar and all that kind of stuff. So I did kind of like it on that. Certain destroyer builds, it's pretty good. But the main thing is just it's really hard for me to justify 4 skills in a lot of builds if it's only going to be a very specialized and situational skill. It's not a bad skill. And like I said, I didn't get in that situation where this thing is going to absolutely shine. But for right now, with like concealment being 4 and a bunch of other skills being 4 and even like a bunch of 3-point skills being right there, I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to take this on a lot of ships. I think there's going to be a certain few builds I'll take this on, and that's where it'll kind of shine. But this kind of gets a med grade for me. Now, basic firing training is also one that kind of got a med grade. It's increased from a 1 point to a 3 point, and it's just you have to run a certain kind of build with like an AA build or certain low tier destroyers. I found myself not taking this on too many situations. Like my Kutuzov, I didn't take basic firing training, which I did in the past. With it being 3 points, it's hard to take because there's so many good 3s now, and even there's so many good 4s that you can maybe throw like another point up there and grab a 4. At 3 points, you have to run an AA build for this, or like have to need it for a destroyer to really take basic firing training on a consistent basis. So this also gets it. Same with Demo Expert, with it only being 2%. It's still like the best in a lot of situations. You know, getting any kind of fire chances is amazing. But at 2%, I could see myself grabbing some other stuff, you know, especially as a destroyer, maybe grabbing survivability instead with Superintendent, or a lot of other situations if you're like an aggressive build with like Vigilance. But Demo Expert isn't like that go-to at 3% that I think it is at 2% now. It's still really good, and I did grab it on a lot of things, especially if you're running Heap. It's a really good way to kind of balance out the loss of fire chance. But at 2%, I found it kind of, you didn't quite have to click on it, but it was always a good choice. So definitely kind of just a meh for me. Basic survivability is now a 3. Same thing. It's just more expensive, so it's harder to grab since there's so many other good skills. And one thing too was Superintendent. I found myself, Superintendent was almost my go-to with battleships, and now I found it kind of as a middle of the road thing again. Do I need that skill? Is it worth grabbing on my Montana for 1 extra heal? I don't need 7 fighter planes, 8 fighter planes. I don't need those. I'm not going to even use them throughout the game. So is it worth grabbing it for the extra heal? And I found a lot of situations, even on my Montana or my Yamato, I didn't grab it. It's just not worth it in a lot of situations as it was in the past. Now, as a destroyer, as a cruiser, this thing's still amazing. It's still a really, really good thing. But I was thinking mainly for battleships. It's hard for me to grab this, especially with how good some of the 4-point skills are. That's kind of the pattern, is it worth it at that, or can I get something better with my points? And kind of the only bad one, and I'm not going to go over all these. Some of them didn't really change. Some of them are kind of the exact same. Some of them are very just like whatever. Like Last Stand is the same. You know, there's a lot of things that are the same. Is Expert Marksmanship. Expert Marksmanship I saw getting, as it used to be the kind of the go-to 2-point skill for a lot of commanders, because there wasn't that much at 2 point for a lot of builds. Now Jack of all Trades is at 2 points. Adrenaline Rush is at 2 points. I find these to be a bit more fun and a bit more aggressive. Expert Marksmanship kind of gets thrown in the back seat, kind of backburner a little bit, and it's not that go-to captain skill that you're really going to need. You know, a lot of, for battleships too, 0.7 degrees every second. It's not nothing, but I don't know if it quite warrants maybe being able to pick up another 3-point or the same thing, another 4-point, especially with Adrenaline Rush being pretty fun and on certain cruisers and when certain situations high alert, and even Jack of all trades. I think I would take over extra marksmanship in a lot. So not quite the skill it used to be. It didn't used to be like that go-to skill that a lot of cookie cutter builds were before this patch. So a lot of good changes, guys, a lot going on, a lot of information. I'll be putting out a lot of videos on certain builds for ships, but these are kind of my good, the bad, and the ugly. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of some of these skills. Did you really see a notice in fire prevention? How did heap treat you guys? You know, RPF, did you get wrecked by RPF? Or I guess it's now RL, radio location. Did you guys get wrecked by it or really see an awesome use for it? And which skills did you guys not see you taking as much as you used to? Because it's kind of all over the place now. But guys, that is it for me. 0.6 is live, so good luck out there. Remember to use the ship comrade calculator to maybe save some doubloons, but even if you do, the doubloon price is pretty cheap to redo your captain. So remember, like and subscribe, guys, and I will see you guys next time.